Hello, welcome back to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. This is a gaming, occasional movie news podcast. I'm your host, Luke Eldon, and as ever, I'm joined by my fellow gamers and friends, Sud, Perks, and Mai. How are you doing, guys?
Very good, yeah. Good.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Good. Good to hear. Glad you guys are all doing well and joining me today to discuss the latest topics. I'm sure we're going to have fun with one of them.
Yeah.
Especially Mai.
It's going to be fun.
Anyway, before we get started, if you're listening to us on YouTube, remember to subscribe to our channel for more gaming content each week. Also, give the video a like and comment below, as it will help the channel to grow. Anyway, let's get started with this week's news and topics. And the first topic is a pretty big one. It's Google unveils gaming platform Stadia as a competitor to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Former Sony and Xbox executive and current Google gaming boss Phil Harrison detailed the platform at an event in San Francisco during the Game Developers Conference, saying it would link all the ways people play games. The core of it is that it will be a gaming platform that runs via streaming, no consoles or PC needed, and no games downloaded or running on a disc at the user's end. They also boasting that it is more powerful than the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro combined, apparently due to its 10.7 GPU teraflops, with the Xbox One X running at 10 teraflops, and the PS4 Pro running at 4.2. That's wrong. 6 teraflops.
Yeah, Xbox One X is 6 teraflops and the PS4 Pro is 4.
Yeah, 6 teraflops and the PS4 Pro is 4.2. So, to me, that's just hardware jargon, but that's what they've used to show that it's a more powerful. I don't know. It's not even a console, is it? It's a more powerful gaming platform.
No, yeah, and just one point quickly about that, the specs or whatever. I don't quite understand why that makes sense anyway, because why does GPU matter?
Well, what it is the server nodes in Google's headquarters. That's essentially how much power that they've got, essentially. So it's like 16 gigs of RAM. It's basically next-gen specs. Like, the specs that I saw, that they were touting looked like next-gen specs to me. So I'm assuming the next PlayStation and next Xbox, when they come out, will probably be spec similarly. But yeah, it's just a streaming service, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about it, in detail, because it has a lot of implications on the future of gaming. But I always allude back to this because I remember me and Perks did a games development course in college, and the tutor came to us one day and he said, "I've just seen the most amazing thing online, guys. It's the future of gaming. It's on live. You don't even have to have a console. All you do is stream it directly to your computer." And obviously on live was a complete and utter failure because the infrastructure just was not ready to go ahead with this sort of streaming. But obviously ever since then...
How long ago was that, Matty?
It's a long time ago. That
10
was
years ago?
2008.
Yeah.
So this isn't a new idea. This is an idea that's been floating around for a long time. It's just going to require, 1, everyone to have a much faster internet connection than they already do, and 2, a massive company with massive infrastructure to back it. And obviously Google are that. If there's anyone that's got enough money to properly fund something like this to make it work, it is Google. But it has sort of wider implications for gaming in general that I'm not happy with, and obviously I will discuss. But I just want to hear your guys' thoughts, on it.
Well, I think for me, I watched a little bit of the video, the announcement, and the thing that just kept coming through my head every single time was, "We're still not ready." Like, the world's still not. That was the thing that kept popping through my head when I was watching it. They kept saying about different things, and I was just like, yeah, but we're not ready for this. Like, it's just the internet speeds are not quick enough. We don't even have 5G yet, which, again, is pretty much going to be kind of required for this thing anyway to work properly in its fullest capacity. I'm sure there is someone out there that's got some sort of super speed internet, that there'll be a select few elites that'll be able to use it to its full potential.
Lucky them.
But the masses won't be able to use this properly. It's just, even in America itself, which has faster internet than us, they're not, even that's not going to be quick enough for most people.
I think America and like New York and the big cities
Yeah,
has,
the big cities.
not like Louisiana's swamps.
No,
internet in
not
some
like
places.
the vast
But I don't
majority
think
of
this is
UK
aiming
is on.
for 5G, to be honest. Yeah, I think this is mainly just for people who have a quick Wi-Fi. But for clarification, they recommend the minimum. It's not like this is how much you need. The minimum speed for download is 25 meg.
I'll never get to play that then.
Yeah, I don't believe it though, Matt. Honestly, I actually think it should be a higher minimum than that. I think they're just being lowballing that. I think you're going to need at least 50 meg, if not up to 100, to be honest, for it to work properly. The technology they're using and stuff, we've seen it all before. You've used it, Matt, a little bit. PlayStation Now, and I know it's different technology. Yes, I understand that Google are a big company, and I'm sure they'll pour tons of money into it, and it's got more chance of succeeding than on live, obviously, because on live was far too early and ran out of money and stuff. Google won't run out of money, but I just get the sense that okay, I kind of like some of the ideas in it. It's pretty cool, I suppose, but it's not my type of gaming, and I think we saw as well the stuff with the whole, you can click on a trailer and it can say at the end of the trailer, "Oh, play now" or whatever, and you click it and it goes into the thing. Yeah, that's a cool idea, but does anyone really care about that?
Are they just stuck in their Silicon Valley bubble?
Well, it does seem like that a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, there's no doubt that streaming, at some point in the future there's going to be a point where it becomes big, because that's the way the world's going. Everything's going like that now, isn't it? The streaming but I just think it's far too early. I think it's still another 5, maybe 7 years away till it fully realizes its potential. And yeah, okay, fair enough. You can say they're getting it in early and showing everyone what they've got, but we've seen this even with Microsoft. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Microsoft's similar type strategy going forward, but it just feels too early to me. And I think there's still a whole other generation to come yet before we can seriously see streaming as a viable platform to play games.
I think you guys know my point of view on things like this. Anyway, I've said it sort of many weeks consecutively that I feel that this thing is way off in the future, and it's just not here and it's not now. I guess we'll sort of dance around the issues sort of back and forth a little bit in the next half an hour or so. But I mean, to sort of bring it back a little bit, they've promised, and that's a key word there, that their service will offer games at the 4K resolution, 60 frames per second. And then they said, was it up to 8K and 120 FPS as well going forward as time goes on?
Mm-hmm.
You can't promise that. You can't promise that because you can't rely on infrastructure sort of moving along with you at that rate. It's just not going to be something that will stay that way. And you know what? If that is their promise and that is their delivery, well, then it's going to be delivered to a very select few people, like you guys have said.
I was just going to make a quick point with that promise they've apparently made, saying like 8K, 120 frames per second. That's the sort of promise they can make, but there's no time limit, is there? They can just say, well, we didn't say it was going to be in the next year. We said in 5 years. So that's a bit of an empty promise, isn't it, really?
Well, I think that is a promise they can make, to be honest, because it's ran on their server. So their server can run a game at 8K, 120 frames per second. Doesn't mean I'm going to be able to play it because I won't be able to connect properly.
That's not the service then, is it? I mean, they promised their service. They didn't just promise their own hardware could run whatever resolutions like 4K and in the future 8K. They promised a service, and the service is the things that we're all going to be using. So they can't just aim at a small percentage and say, well, hey, look, we did deliver on our promise.
I think that's just PR spin, isn't it, Perks? That like 8K, it's just to like go, oh, wow, and get
to wow people, but it's...
Yeah, I can run Tetris at 8K, 120 frames a second now.
Lucky man.
But no, look, in all seriousness, again, we've said this in the here and the now, or even by the end of this year, which is, I guess, when was Doom Eternal the one that they said was going to be one of the first things they used?
That was one of their big announcements, wasn't it? That
exactly.
Game
so imagine all of us right now, and we have various connections and various sort of stabilities to go with it. Can you imagine all four of us being able to play Doom Eternal 4K, 60 frames per second consistently on this platform when it first launches.
Not a chance.
Not a
No
chance.
way.
No way.
No way in hell, as Vince would say.
And to put it into context as well, we all pay. Well, I don't know about you, Alden, but I know me, Perks, and Sud all pay for the fastest internet that is available to us in our area.
No,
So
yeah,
it's not like
exactly.
we're all skimping out on internet connections.
No, that's
I mean,
same
mine
here.
might be different now. It might, but a couple of years ago when I got it, it was apparently the fastest I could get here. So yeah.
If you're in the UK, avoid Sky. It's crap.
Or
Sky
BT.
broadband.
Or just
crap.
avoid any of them, really. There's not many that are good.
Just avoid all
I mean, look,
providers.
regardless of this, right, let's actually look at some numbers. I mean, I'll use myself as an example here because I guess I can only really speak for myself. When I'm sort of hardwired with the Ethernet cable and not even trying to rely on wireless or 4K or whatever it might be at the time, I can get between 55 and 70 meg consistently. And that goes way and above 3 times really what they've said is the minimum you should be aiming for. And I would not trust this to work at that. I would not trust having, let's call it bottom of the line for me. Let's say I have a sustainable 50 meg connection and my upload, my download speed will be good. I would not be able to sustain a 4K resolution game at 60 FPS consistently with no dropouts, with no horrible latency problems, which I just know are going to be a thing when this first sort of comes to the fore. I can already see it coming, and I'm going to be sat there trying to use the service because, hey, we're all going to give it a go if we possibly can. And I'm going to say, I told you so. I tick all the boxes. I should be able to use this, and it's just not going to work. And you can call me pessimistic, but things like this, like we said, they're not new. They've been around in the past. They've failed for a reason. And I think with all the best planning, let's be very fair. I don't care if they've got Phil Harrison at the sort of forefront of this. They're still new to the dance. This is Google we're talking about. This isn't Microsoft or Sony. And this is a big play that could basically fall flat on its face.
I don't quite understand as well because, and you never hear, do you, in these keynotes they deliver? I've never, about streaming, you never hear them address the problem of internet speeds. It's as if it doesn't exist. It's as if, like you said, they're all living in they're all at Silicon Valley with their fucking 200 500 meg connections. Yeah. It's if they don't. I've never heard anyone, even Microsoft for this matter, talk about this streaming service and actually say, "Well, these are the reasons it's going to work, and these are what we're going to try and do to make sure people catch up." You just don't hear about it, and it's like, are they living in some sort of like cuckoo dream world where everyone has amazing connections or something? I don't quite understand it.
It's either ignorance or arrogance, or a combination of both.
Probably.
Yeah,
it's trying to get ahead of the game, isn't it? Yeah. Like this is what all companies do. They try and have foresight. It's one of them things. The 360 released with HD capabilities. No one had a HD TV at the time. Very few people. It was such an expensive device. But over time, HD TVs became affordable. And obviously, it's the same thing now with the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. I remember when the PS4 Pro came out, people were like, "Who's got a 4K TV?" And now, you can get like a 50-inch 4K TV for like 400 quid. Yeah. So it's about having that foresight, and they're expecting, everyone's internet to go the same, but it's such a different kettle of fish because the internet like infrastructure isn't dependent on sort of manufacturers like it is TVs. It's dependent on so many varying factors. Having those sort of fiber cables provided to you, that isn't like a company that does that.
Maybe they know something we don't.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I don't know. It, like I said, I can see 5G, like in the future, maybe if that becomes mainstream and it becomes stable. More importantly, because it isn't just about like Percy alluded to, it isn't just about having we can all go on speed test wired up to our internet, and we'll all have like I said, because we pay for that internet 60, 70 meg. But the moment that drops, which it does, because it is a service at the end of the day, even if that drops for 1 second, if you're streaming a game, that's it. It becomes an inconvenience and it fucks up your game. All of a sudden, you're running around playing Doom and it skips like 100 frames and just, bugs out and then like reloads itself. It's just a really like massive inconvenience. And it's something that I don't have to have as an inconvenience if I just have a console or I just have a PC with the actual game on there. I'm not going to run into that issue. So I don't sort of see the value proposition at the moment.
No, and yeah, like you said, I think the worry I have as well is with these companies going to this streaming service, and we're talking about the haves and have-nots, aren't we? With it's very limited people at the minute that have these connections and stuff like that. But what worries me is that, especially in this country, we're so slow with getting technology that I just feel like in the future we're going to be left behind almost, this country maybe, with these sort of streaming devices, because the US, yeah, okay. US and Japan mainly are the two, aren't they? Would usually have the fastest connections.
I think Japan's quite far in front.
Yeah.
Japan's
And
miles
to be
ahead.
honest, I bet even China are probably catching up now as well. Whereas in the UK and Europe, it's so slow, and I just think
No, I
gonna
don't
be a
think
problem.
China will catch up. I think it's just
Maybe not China, but-
space. It's just space. You go to the US, and I see people from the United States complaining all the time about internet connections and massive download sizes and stuff. Obviously, in the big occupied areas and sort of New York, big cities, they do have that fast internet connection. But in the rural areas where there's big masses of land, they've got terrible connections.
Yeah.
It's one of them things. It's all about space, really. If you've got a really enclosed area, it's going to be easier to get fast internet connections to everyone. So that's why sort of Japan, in the big massive cities especially, has such fast internet speeds. But yeah, in America and also Britain, there's a lot of sort of rural areas as well in Britain that don't have maybe as fast speeds as you'd expect. That's still a massive problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I just think this is going to be the problem, though. Like, I think you've already alluded to it, but where's the point where everyone can use this service to a decent standard? How many years are we talking? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Because, like Matt said, even we're really in a rural area where we are compared to like the main cities in this country. When are we going to be able to use this service at its full capacity? It's going to be a long time.
It feels like. Did they give a release date?
Did they give a release date? I'm not actually sure.
I haven't
about
seen.
that.
I haven't
Has anyone
seen
seen
one
it
if they
released?
have.
No.
I'm
Is it
more
this- is it
interested
gonna
in
be
if they
this year,
gave a
or-
price.
No,
Did they give a
didn't give
price?
No, they didn't. They
No,
didn't
they
mention
didn't
anything
give a
about price.
price.
That's one of the big
There's
complaints.
nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. So people are actually complaining about that, saying, here we go. Google are going to try and sneak in a price at some point.
Do you reckon it's
'Cause-
going to be subscription based?
Well,
You would
it-
imagine
it
so.
will
Yeah,
be
it'd have
because
to
it's a
be.
service. Like, it won't be a
That's
one-off
the way it's all
payment.
going now, isn't it?
You might be able to
Subscriptions.
pay for sort of months at a time, or
I meant,
obviously
yeah,
with
like pay for a
memberships.
year.
Yeah,
Or do you think it'll be a
I would
monthly?
definitely think they'll do that. They'll give as many options as possible, I would have
Yeah.
thought, because they're trying to appeal to as many different people as they can. But on costing, I mean, not only do we not know how much the service is, we don't know how much the controller is. That could be priced extortionately to make up for the fact that there's sort of no console in particular.
You don't need the controller though, do you? It's not a necessity. I'm sure
I think
you can use-
I don't know. I think it might actually be.
Mm.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know the controller has Google Assistant
Yeah.
and built in, and it's also weirdly Wi-Fi as well.
Wi-Fi,
It doesn't
yeah.
actually connect via
Yeah.
Bluetooth. It's because the
Strange.
Chromecast, basically, like the Google Chromecast is like a little, you've seen them in the shops. They're like little boxes that you plug into your TV to have like Netflix and streaming services on there.
Yeah, my
That's what
girlfriend
they're going to
uses one.
use.
And it's
Yeah.
alright, to be fair.
Yeah, that's what they're going to use to obviously help roll this out onto
Guys,
TVs.
It works with any
Yeah.
controller, apparently. To play on Stadia, users can take advantage of Google's own controller, but the entire setup works with almost any other controller as well. Confirmed
Right,
by
the
Eurogamer.
service is going to have better uses with the Stadia controller itself, with the YouTube sort of link and their other sort of streaming links. You're going to need a controller to get the best out of the experience.
Yeah,
So
but a
I-
Google controller is not a necessity.
No,
That was
but
the point I made.
yeah, no, that's fair enough. But I
I think
think,
most people are going to want to use it.
well, yeah, that's kind
that's
of
the
what I
thing.
was going for there. It's not a necessity, and I guess we could trial it with our Xbox or PlayStation ones if we really wanted it to. But or
I
really
imagine they'll
wanted to.
probably do something where, like Luke alluded to, if they do like a 12-month subscription, you get a free controller.
Yeah, that makes
Something
sense.
along those lines.
Wow, I think that's incredibly
What
optimistic.
did
I can see the controller launching for
I don't think this is going to be cheap,
quite a
mate.
high
I
price.
think
No.
this is going to be. I think this is going to be at least 20 quid a month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe more.
Jeez.
But what did you guys think of the controller? Just out of interest.
Looked all right to me.
It looked like pretty much
DualShock 4
yeah,
and
Yeah, it did.
Xbox One
Xbox
had a
buttons.
baby.
exactly. Literally what I was going to say.
Same button
and,
layout as Xbox, isn't it? Same lettering as well.
Yeah, and obviously they went for the symmetrical sticks rather than
which
the
is-
asymmetric ones, which is
Yeah,
just
that's already a
bad
problem
move.
for me. It's like, you know, just learn from the best controller ever made. I don't know why they've decided to use symmetrical sticks.
I mean, in terms of pure sort of aesthetics, it looks okay, but until you get
Yeah, it
one in
looks
your hands
alright,
and try it for yourself,
Well,
it's
it
one of
certainly
those
looks
things that
better
you
than
write
that
down.
leaked fake render from
Oh,
the.
that was awful, wasn't it? It was like
That was
flat or
terrible.
something. It looked like a pancake. It was so weird. But
Yeah, well, let's be thankful we didn't get that. But I mean,
Yeah.
before we
Extremely
sort of go
thankful.
away too much from it, the one question that I was going to ask really is, what games are we actually going to get? And I mean, in the long term here, I mean, they can promise this, that, and the other, and they can reference Doom Eternal, but are we going to get the
If they want to
massive
be taken
library? Because
seriously, they
have to
need
have that.
they need
exclusive
everything.
games.
They need
No,
exclusive.
no,
Well,
it's not just
yeah.
they need everything. If they want to be taken seriously and if they want to compete with Microsoft's service on this, they need exclusive games.
Did you see though, Matt, that they are actually creating their own
Yeah,
studio?
the studios. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Only
But
one, though.
obviously,
It
we
was
haven't
only one,
seen
wasn't
any.
it?
Yeah,
Only
we haven't
mentioned
seen
one.
any of these
Yeah.
imaginary games made by these studios.
Yeah. They only mentioned one main studio, didn't they? And I guess they're going to like off-branch it from that. But
They've got enough financial weight though to
that's
make this
definitely
happen.
yeah, I mean, they're going to get like the majority of third-party games, aren't they? So that's pretty much in the bag. I can't see how they wouldn't.
Let's not jump too far ahead. The majority of third-party games,
you would
third-party
imagine
games that
so.
are out now, the ones that exist sort of when they launch.
No, they'll
I
get
mean,
day-and-date games.
is this going to launch with Doom Eternal as being one of the first ones, and then as soon as the next big, and I mean top of the line, number one in the charts, third-party game launches for consoles, is it going to be launching on Stadia at the same time?
Why
Because if
wouldn't
it's not, then it's pointless. Because
But
we've
why
seen
wouldn't
this with streaming services before. They don't
Yeah, but
always
it's just
have
more
the best
revenue for the
things at
third
the
party.
beginning.
They know
They
Google's
can't
going to be.
always acquire that.
Well, I kind of disagree with your point. I think they will get the majority of third-party games because it's just more revenue streams for these companies. Why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they want to put? A lot of these third-party, they want to put their games on everything because that makes the most money. And if this Google thing kind of has a decent start and kicks off, why wouldn't they put it on there?
It's not so much why wouldn't they put it on there. It's just can they? Can they do that?
Well, I think so. With the technology that's progressing, I would imagine so.
We've discussed the infrastructure, and we can discuss the infrastructure of this all day. But what I'm like really worried about, it's something that I've always been worried about with these streaming services, are the quality of the games. And what I mean by that is, at the moment, obviously, it's fine because the games that are being released on there are also released as digital and physical full products, and that's how they make a lot of their money. And at the moment, this is a nice bonus for them. Essentially, they're getting money on top of what they're already going to be making from selling it. Say Doom Eternal, for example. Bethesda know they're going to sell, millions of copies on the Xbox One, the PS4, and they're also going to get royalties from Google or, Xbox if they put it on Game Pass or whatever. So obviously that's good for them. But I'm just worried about the future. Say if all gaming went to streaming, what is the incentive for the streaming services to continue providing quality games? Because we saw it with Netflix, like the quality of shows on Netflix has just got worse and worse and worse. And yeah, there are the few sort of hidden gems still left on there, like Stranger Things, and there's still some good shows on Netflix. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I'm saying everything on there is rubbish, but it's more about you see it all the time. It's like if you're on Netflix and you don't see a new game on there for the month that you've got a new show on there, sorry. In the months that you're paying for it, you feel like cancelling it. And that's the thing with these streaming services where people have got instant access to all these games. They're going to want a constant flow of new content, and the developers are going to be under so much pressure to keep making and churning out game after game after game. I just think the quality of games is going to go down, and we're going to get more and more shovelware, and that really, really worries me.
I know we're going to get onto Microsoft in a minute with their plans for streaming, but isn't this kind of why Microsoft is buying so many studios in a minute, to try and alleviate this problem? If they're going to go down this Game Pass streaming route, I think that's the same thing Google will try and do: buy up loads of companies and try and get to a stage where they can release an exclusive game a month or every couple of months. I guess that's what they're going to do. But yeah, I think your wider point about you're sort of worried about the quality of games is an interesting one. Because for a long time, that's been the problem with Steam, hasn't it? I know it's not a streaming service, Steam, but, because it's become so popular and so open that there's absolute... I mean, you see it every day, we were looking before, weren't we, at the list of Steam games coming out every day, and it's just absolutely ridiculous.
So
much shovelware and crap on there. It's unbelievable. And yeah, I think that's Marty's point, really. Is this new streaming phenomenon going to create a new sort of wave of just anything being on there? But it'll be interesting to see.
I guess looking at it from the developer's perspective, I mean, we have the sort of few specs that Luke mentioned at the start as we were going through the article, but I mean, we don't know. We're not privy to exactly how it's going to be when it comes to developing games to run on a platform like Stadia. How different is it from a core perspective? Sure, some of the pieces that combine the puzzle may be the same as they'd use for the Xbox or the PlayStation or Switch, what have you. But this could be way off for them. This could be something that they look at and think, wow, this is going to cost us a lot more money or take us a lot more in the shape of resources. What are the publishing costs for this kind of thing? There's a lot of questions that just simply don't have answers right now for something like this.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say before, Perks, that gaming has essentially the way that games are provided to the consumer has been the same, for 25 years. And the industry's carried on and succeeded under those rules. And I think my point is, as soon as you start changing that distribution method, it's going to raise a lot of new questions as to, because games are only going to get more and more and more and more expensive to make. So how on earth is a publisher going to make, say a game costs, how much was Destiny? That's always the one I go to, because that's still the most expensive one, isn't it? I don't have the figures off the top of my head. You'll probably remember, Perks.
500 million, wasn't
they
it?
had 500 million in terms of cost for the game, but that was over a 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
So say 3 development cycles, if you like.
So say 200 million, essentially, for a new game. If you're just putting that game on a streaming service, how are you going to recoup 200 million of development costs? Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how they're going to be recouping that much money from. I mean, are Google really going to be paying Bethesda, 200 million to make a game for them to put on their streaming service? No chance. So it's just and I get the point, like, oh, this isn't supposed to replace traditional consoles. It's just supposed to be an addition. But it's like, no, the sort of long-term goals, it seems, for a lot of these companies is that this is going to replace consoles eventually. So, if it does, I'm just really worried about the future of AAA games, to be honest.
Well, I like owning a console as well.
Well,
I completely agree.
Call me simplistic, but I just love it.
Yeah. That's a good
we
point,
all do, though. We're traditional, and that appeals to us in a great way. I mean...
Are we in the minority, Perks, with that?
I'm not sure, right?
I don't think we are.
The point that I was going to make, right, is that media, and I'm going to blanket it just as media for the time being, has evolved quite drastically over time, whereas games in general are, like Matt said, they're still the sort of way that they were available to us 20 years ago. You look at something like Spotify now, that works. That's successful for music. That's successful for artists. That's successful for consumers of music. And it sure provides ownership questions. And, when your subscription comes to an end, or, that's if you pay for premium or you've got access to the free service, which is a whole different ballgame altogether. But as a platform, as a streaming service, that works for the music industry. We've talked about Netflix, and there's others out there as well, whether we look at sort of Amazon Prime, things like that. For the movie, the film, and the series industry, that kind of works. Sure, there's pros and cons, and you could delve into it much deeper than that.
Netflix are in a lot of debt, though.
Exactly. But it's something that has been successful from its sort of inception for a period of time, and it has been shown to work in majority, but like you say, things have sort of changed for them right now. We haven't particularly seen something like this exist for long enough in the gaming space to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys all sort of share my pessimism over it. But the fact is, until we get someone bringing it to the table, whether it's Google with Stadia or Microsoft with xCloud, and really doing it, not sort of looking at the past examples like on Live that just didn't even get off the ground. It was the rocket that went to take off into space and blew up on the landing pad. It was pointless. So until it actually gets there and until we actually see it and understand it and have complete clarity with no gray areas, I don't think we can really know, but that's why we're so pessimistic at this time, because there's so many questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if we want to kind of just go on to the Microsoft stuff with this as well, because obviously Microsoft are a big part of this. We know that Phil Spencer has kind of been pushing this direction now for maybe a couple of years, and there is a story here on IGN that I came across today that it's actually an alleged email that went out to various Microsoft employees. In it, Xbox head Phil Spencer reportedly said that Google Stadia announcement had no big surprises, and that he reiterated that Xbox in turn will go big at E3 2019. There's just a couple of quite interesting quotes in here. One of them is, their announcement is validation of the path we embarked on 2 years ago, which sort of, I suppose, validates that this is the path they're kind of going on as well. He did actually, to be fair, it seems like it does actually seem like maybe he's throwing a bit of shade on Google, but he does say that he was impressed with their leveraging of YouTube, the use of the assistant, and the new Wi-Fi controller. He also, reiterates Google went big today, and we have a couple of months until E3 when we will go big. So, what do we think about these comments, and what do we think this means for Microsoft maybe at E3?
I mean, look, all I'm going to take from this is the fact that I said last week, I really hope that Microsoft don't focus too much of their E3 conference on the xCloud thing, because that's just, it's going to end up like the previous E3 disaster that they've had, which we've referenced way too many times. He's talking about Google going big and Microsoft going big in return. There's going to be an xCloud focus at E3, and I hate that.
It does seem though, doesn't it? I mean, maybe it was took out of context, but just reading it like that, it does seem like he's referring to, well, okay, Google have shown their plans for the streaming. Now we're going to show ours.
That's exactly what it is. Let's be fair. This is not taken out of context. This is word for word.
This is a leaked email, isn't it?
You
can pretty much say it's probably what he really thinks. It's not some PR spin.
Yeah.
So
he's not talking about gaming in a general sense. He's talking about Google, and we're going big in return. It's like, okay, that's what you've got. We're going to show you now. He's not just going to show console stuff, because Google don't care about that. So
we care about that though.
Yeah, we really do.
We want it.
See, I think we've all said, haven't we? And I think we all said in a previous podcast, we'd like it maybe if it wasn't there, but we kind of know it's going to be there. I don't mind if it's there for 10 minutes, say. If it's there for 5-10 minutes of the show, they have a quick explanation of this is what we're doing, this is for the future. But that's all I want. I want the rest of the show to be focused on games and possibly the new hardware for next gen. I don't want, like you said, Perks, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, fine. You can show it off. It's you can do what you want. It's your E3, but that's fine with me. A quick 5-10 minutes. But any more than that, and it becomes a slog then, and it's like I just don't want to be here.
I think it might be a bit, might be more emphasis than 5 or 10 minutes, because, like you said, this email, it's their competitor now.
Yeah.
They have to respond as a result. It's business.
I don't know if you three feel this as well. The language he's using towards Google makes. I've never heard Phil Spencer. He usually comes across as this nice guy, doesn't he? And nice guy Phil, and he talks about Sony in a nice way. Well, yeah, but true. But he talks about, doesn't he, Sony in a nice way, Nintendo. But have you noticed with Google, it seems like he's been more cold, as if they're an actual true threat.
Well, they're stepping onto their turf, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, it's almost like a fight promo or something. I'm just going to read the end of the memo. He says, "We have the content, community, cloud team, and strategy. And as I've been saying for a while, it's all about execution. This is even more true today. Energizing times." And it's like, okay, so pretty much everything you're doing going forward is xCloud based, and
seems like it. I mean, I think.
Well,
I think
it's
what
obviously
Microsoft,
not that much energizing times for Phil Spencer because he looks like he's put on about 10 stones since the last time I saw him.
Sure, I'm sure
That's
if you're
the
listening, I'm sure
depression
if you're
for you.
listening, Phil, we appreciate that comment from Matt. But,
Uncle Phil.
but
No, he is a nice guy, Phil, because he tried to help me get a job. So, I
there
can't
you
really
go.
badmouth him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You could have been working on the xCloud now if you'd took him up on his offer.
No, I would have quit.
But quit in protest. Yeah. But yeah, it does seem, doesn't it, with the Google Microsoft thing, is going to be a big rivalry coming up.
Yeah, there's no surprise there though.
No,
not after
I think Google are a
this
big
reveal.
threat.
Yeah, they're going to be. They've got so much clout behind them because, like they've mentioned as well, they don't just own Google. Well, sorry, they are Google, obviously, but they own YouTube. YouTube as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's massive. That is huge. He mentions that, doesn't he, Phil, about leveraging YouTube, and makes sense.
And this is what I said off air. It's like everybody is going, towards this streaming service, it seems, or wanting to have this streaming service. And Google and Microsoft are two absolute behemoths. Sorry, at the industry. It's like Sony.
I prefer behemoth.
Yeah, behemoth. All right, I'm just going with behemoth. But yeah, they are two of those. Yeah. And they're going head to head, and I don't even know why Sony's trying to compete because they haven't got the money or the infrastructure to compete with those two. So I think they should just stick to traditional hardware.
Yeah, I was actually, before you just brought that up, Matt, I was actually going to ask, well, you especially, but all three really, where you think Sony stands in all this, because I suppose Sony, they have tried their own, haven't they, with the Gaikai and stuff like that. And, who knows, maybe they'll reveal something at some point soon, but you do get the sense that Sony are going to have to, maybe the best way forward for them is just to be really traditional and really stick to their roots.
I think they might kind of bide their time.
Wait and see.
Yeah, assess it, assess the new what field that there's going to be in terms of type of gaming.
I suppose that's a risk, though, isn't it? Because if this thing does kick off, they could be. I mean, it could be done.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if they wait and assess it, and then the internet speeds aren't quick enough, and people can't use these services, they'll probably end up going to Sony as a result. I guess quite a few of them. I
do kind of agree with what Matt said about. He might have said it off air actually about if Microsoft and Google are going to focus, especially Microsoft, on we still have a traditional console, but we're focusing on this xCloud. They're going to try and do, it seems to me, PS4 with PS5 what they did with PS4 in 2013, and try and focus and to the hardcore gamers again for me, and just say, look, you're a hardcore gamer. Yes, okay, we might have some streaming stuff in the future, but right now we are focusing on the traditional hardcore gaming experience. And, they can prove it with PS4's games. They can go, look what we did in the PS4 era. We're going to do exactly the same in the PS5 era. You don't need to move anywhere. And it could work. Who knows?
What do you think about it, Perks?
I mean, look, my prediction before was that Sony are going to stick to what they've done in the past. And I'm quite confident in my prediction here. They're just going to roll out on stage and say, this is a new console. These are new games. Here you go.
Enjoy.
And that's pretty much it. I think, let's not be naive. They're obviously going to be working on things, behind the scenes.
Definitely.
That goes without saying. But what they don't need to do is sort of fire their load now and go, oh, look, this is our version of it. Because, hey, Microsoft have done it, Google have done it. It looks like they're sort of going head to head now in that respect. Sony don't need to make some big streaming service announcement right now. They can literally just wait and see.
Yeah.
If one of the two, and hey, look, both xCloud and Stadia might be really, really good. Unlikely, but who knows? They may well be. And then Sony can also bring their version to the dance with all the sort of unique features that they might have. And people will still like that anyway, because look, people do like Sony, and that's fine.
Well, I think
so. Just before you go in there, it's one of those things, right, where they could actually be the biggest winners by announcing nothing and doing nothing. Because if these two things don't take off, and pretty much you guys referenced it a few minutes ago, these things don't take off, and Sony haven't sort of shot too early, and they've kept theirs under wraps for the time being, and they're still traditional, and everyone's like, well, we're just going to go to Sony then. Like, if they haven't already, then really strong position. I think that the smart play here for Sony would be to wait and see and still sort of develop in the background and just sort of hold on for the time being because
Completely agree.
you've got two of the better things firing it out now, and we'll see. It's interesting
Firing
though.
shots.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
So yeah, I'm look, I don't want to say this, but I think maybe we could be PS5 gamers in the not too distant future.
Well, possibly, yeah. I think as well, what it does show is all this stuff at the minute that's going on with the streaming, Google and Microsoft's sort of semi-resurgences. That thank God for competition in the gaming industry because
We spoke about this a while back as well, didn't we?
Because well, you can look at it two ways. If there was no Sony, Microsoft and Google could be allowed to be rampant with this and completely, monetize everything and make everything really too difficult for people. And if there was no Microsoft or Google, then Sony could rest on their laurels and just forever never have to adapt or never change and always be like lagging behind. So it's good in a way, isn't it, that there is these different strategies because it does breed better things from whichever company's doing worse. So, if Google and Microsoft do start going up, then Sony will have to respond and improve their services and vice versa. So that's why competition's good, really, I suppose.
I agree. I want to get your guys' thoughts quickly, though, on the name.
Google Stadia.
Yeah. I don't really like it.
Bit of a wishy-washy name for me. It's a bit like, I don't think it's an absolutely terrible name, but I also don't think it's a catchy name. It's
Why wasn't it just called Google Gaming?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Simplistic to the point.
Something like that. But Stadia sounds to me like a sport streaming service. And Matt can appreciate this because we had this kind of idea before it was even a thing.
Our idea again. I'm sick of it.
It's like you're gonna sit there in a virtual stadium watching a live sporting event, whether it's a football match or whatever, and it's nothing like that. It's a game streaming service. So the name is a miss for me.
Yeah, definitely. However, we'll end the Google Stadia talk there, and we'll move on to the next topic, which is the Division 2. I know Perks and Sud, you guys have been able to play this game quite a bit. Well, Perks more so than Sud, but you've got enough in there to have an opinion on the game.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So what are you guys' thoughts?
I'll let you start, Perks.
Look, I'll admit that I was wrong about the Division 2. I didn't have.
Is that an apology there, Perks? Is that a personal apology to the one and only?
It's not an apology to you. It's an apology to Ubisoft and all the hard workers there.
What did you say about the beta when Sud said you should try it for free?
I said it was trash, and I've seen it all before. To be honest with you, I even said I wasn't going to pick the game up, but Anthem was that bad. Then I sold Anthem and gave the Division 2 a chance, and that's probably the best gaming decision I've made in a long time, because, look, credit where it's due, and I don't even have any hesitation in saying this. I was so wrong about the Division 2. It's really how this kind of game needs to be, and I'm not sort of 5 or 6 hours in and looking at it with sort of Division 2 tinted glasses. It's, 40 hours or something like that for me now? And I'm not done. I'm still progressing. Pretty much, I could count the sort of cons on one hand for the game so far, and we're talking about really minor things here anyway. So overall, before we start to break it down, I'm really impressed with the Division 2 and what it's bringing to this space right now.
Well, I just want to say that, just to your point there, take my opinion with a grain of salt, because I kind of am. Only 8 hours into the game, so maybe I do have Division 2 rose-tinted glasses. But my early impressions of the game are great. I kind of knew the game was going to be good anyway from when I played the beta. That's kind of what I tried to emphasize to Perks, but obviously it's not the same when you need to play it to really understand that. But I've really enjoyed it. I love the setting as well. I think the Washington DC setting works fantastically well. I think it works better than the setting of New York, actually, than the first game. Like Perk said, coming off of Anthem as well, I think maybe that actually helps us to have a more higher opinion of the game, because, we all know that Anthem was not the game we wanted it to be or expected it to be. And this game has so far exceeded my expectation. I'm sure it's the same for you as well, Perks.
Well, 100%. It's by far and away exceeding expectations.
Mm.
But just an important note there, it's not good because Anthem was crap. It's good because it stands tall and it's actually good. It's not
Yeah.
succeeding just because something else failed. And to go into a bit more detail in it, one of the things that stands out to me, and especially with this kind of game, all of the missions in the game are unique.
Yeah.
So the story missions, the side missions, the sort of named missions in the game, if you like, they're all unique. All of the areas are individual and put together, sort of piece by piece. They're not reused or rehashed. And sure, when the world flips and you get to sort of World Tier 1 and so forth, you do get reused areas, but that's a long time into the game. And the mechanics within them change, the enemy dynamics change. So it's not just rinse and repeat, shoot the same enemies again, but on a harder difficulty. And
Yeah.
it's refreshing as hell, to be honest with you, to see a game like this do something like that. Because using the obvious Destiny example that we've used so many times on this show, they had some amazing areas that they crafted and put together, and you saw them for the first time, and you thought, this is outstanding. And then you see them again and again and again, and it just loses its gleam. Whereas the missions in this, you just don't see them like that. You see them once when you play through at the beginning, and then the world flips, you see it again. But it's so far between. You still appreciate the sort of unique and individual design of them. So the level of replayability that it has is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
Do you know what? Seeing a game like this launch in such a good state is an example to follow. It's not bereft of content. It has great missions, whether they're main or story, like I just said. The gear, whether it's the weaponry, the armor, the roles that you can get with it, and the compositions, which become a bit more crucial later on as the difficulty progresses, as you'd imagine, really, with this kind of game. Everything from the beginning, not things that's locked behind DLC that was developed and cut from the game. Not things that were, oh crap, we didn't include that at launch. Let's quickly hash out a patch to get it in there.
Mm.
It launched in a great way. And in terms of examples to follow, this really is it. I guess another
Yeah,
thing that
definitely.
stands it apart is that the AI is actually creative
Oh,
within the game.
fantastic AI! It's one of the best AIs I've actually seen
Yeah,
and definitely the best in this type of game and in any game really. They're so they're so aggressive and they feel almost like like really sort of scary in a strange way because it's like they're constantly charging at you, changing tactics. You don't get a minute's respite, especially if you're playing in four-player co-op. I suppose it is a little bit easier to sort of navigate them and stuff. But if you're playing solo or with just one other person, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. It's a tough game actually, and but there's an element of fun in that because it's a challenge. So
it,
I'm sorry, Piers. I've got a question. Obviously, you've been through all these sort of elements of the game, but for me and Luke, and I imagine this is probably going to be a lot of potential consumers listening, we are probably consumers that are jaded with this type of game. I didn't buy Anthem. Eldon didn't enjoy Anthem. We both sort of didn't like Destiny. We played it for a short amount of time. What sets this apart? What's the reason I would buy this shooter? After being so jaded for so long.
Yeah, definitely. Fair question. Look, this might sound like an easy thing to say, but as somebody who's spent so much time in these kind of games and done the same thing over and over again and tried to fight losing battles when people say there's nothing to do, that's the charm with this game. From the moment you put it on through, like I said, I'm around the 40-hour mark. I haven't run out of things to do. I haven't replayed the same thing twice. I haven't done any repetitive nonsense. I haven't had to sit and defend objectives whilst bars and meters charge up. I haven't had to rinse and repeat kill the same group of enemies just over and over again for the sake of experience points or anything like that. The content is there at the beginning. It comes with the initial purchase, and that should really sell it to you in itself. There's a lot of sort of creativity that you can do with the skills and the loadout compositions, which you gain access to sort of progressively as you go through the game. So you can set your guy up to be very different to mine. Later on, towards the end, and as the world starts to change and progress, you even have the opportunity to respec some of the abilities, but that does only sort of go with 3 of the end sort of loadouts. But the fact that it's launched with so much unique content to begin with, and genuinely good content as well, not just, hey, there's loads of it, but it's not very good. This kind of game, this kind of genre needed this kind of game, and it's the highest praise I can give to it right now.
Yeah, I think for me, just to sort of partially answer your question, because obviously Perks played a lot more than me, but I think for me, as a more similar type gamer to you, Matt, I would say, than Perks right now, I think I haven't felt, like, when I've been playing the game through, I haven't felt as if it's even a shared world shooter. It is a shared world shooter, don't get me wrong, but to me, it feels more like, a really good single player game with great co-op elements. And I don't even feel, it feels completely different for me than playing like Destiny and Anthem. On them games, you literally feel like you get that sort of shared world slog almost in them games. It's hard to describe.
Sends me to sleep.
Yeah, but on this game, I actually feel like I'm invested in a really good sort of single player game, even though I know we're going to maybe go on to this, Perks, but yes, the later you go in the game, the more you need the co-op people, the later on in the story missions you go. I get that. But early to mid game, you can definitely viably play the game solo completely. And to be honest, really, you can play the whole game solo, maybe apart from the sort of the main missions, some of them, maybe the last, what we say, 4 or 5, maybe you might need a co-op partner, unless you're very skilled. But I think a lot of the games, like the side mission stuff, like all the random stuff, you can play on your own. And it's just, for me, it's just a fun game to explore. Like, it almost feels a little bit, I get like flashbacks to Fallout 3 almost, because that was Washington setting. But because it's the same setting, it's a similar type buildings, it's post-apocalyptic, it's really cool. And I think one of the main strengths for me of this game actually is the environments. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think the environments are fantastic in this game. The buildings look amazing. The outdoors great, but for me as well, one of the biggest points of the environments is the indoor. I think the indoor environments are fantastic, especially in the main missions. I think they've done a great job with that. It almost feels a game I would describe the indoor. I don't know if you get this sense a little bit, Perks. A little bit like Rainbow Six Vegas type in some of the areas inside. When it's like it's tight, compact corridors and sort of it feels that's what it reminded me of, some of the areas. Because that game was challenging as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, in terms of that design, it kind of links back to what I said before about how all of the missions are designed in a very unique way, and
definitely.
they're not all like that. There's some tight rooms and tight corridors that get breached, and enemies and AI will sort of crash through windows or rappel down from the ceiling or come up from the floor. They've got loads of different ways to engage you, and it's really sort of unexpected at times. There's big areas, there's small areas, there's medium sized. There's a lot of different tactics at play there. And
definitely,
yeah, look, you can definitely play this game solo if you want to. Me personally, and I made this point to you before off air, was that games like this are always best experienced in co-op. Look, whether it's 2 players, 3 players, or the 4 that you've got as the full squad, they're great that way. But this one doesn't alienate you for playing alone, and hey, props to them for that.
Yeah, I definitely think. Good.
Yeah, I definitely think out of all the shared world shooters, it's the most solo friendly. Definitely. No doubt about that for me.
Hey, Matty, considering you could be a potential customer of this, would you buy it after listening to their glowing review?
So obviously, my main problem with shared world shooters, and it's always what I've said to Perks, is that the actual content of the game, the sort of story and the sort of main mission content only lasts like 8 hours and you're done. And then after that, it's just grind this, grind that. It was like, that was the way with Destiny. I remember when the original Destiny came out, me and Perks were really looking forward to playing it. And when we did that sort of last mission with the Vex, I just saw the credits roll and I was like, what?
Dude, the Black Heart was just bad.
Yeah. I don't know, Matt. I think it's completely different to Destiny. I think it's got far more content than any of the games have had, and it's not just about how much. There's a lot of content in the game.
That's it exactly. That's what I want. I'm happy if it's got actual, like Person said. He's played it for 40 hours and doesn't feel like he's done the same thing once, which is great. That's exactly what I'm looking for from that type of game.
But
an
it's not
actual
even the,
investment that feels worth it. I don't want to invest 50 to 100 hours grinding the same mission or doing the same strike. That just isn't interesting to me at all. I'm happy to, game for 50, 100 hours plus, but as long as it's actual engaging, fresh content each time.
It's not even just about the single player or, the side missions as well that kind of feel unique.
Well, they are unique.
Yeah, and
there's
like
no two side missions that are the same.
I don't know about you, but as well, I found the audio logs really fascinating in this game as well. They're actually really good audio logs. Like they tell stories of people that were around before the apocalypse happened and different types of stories, and it's actually really cool. And not just that as well. You got to remember, Matt, as well in this game there's a PvP as well, which I haven't tried yet. I don't know if you've tried Perks, but that's and there's a dark zone as well. The dark zone, obviously, which is the main, a lot of people's end game sort of content. Which we haven't even gone into, really.
The PvP, and I have a small sample size. I've played the PvP for about 2 hours, so if anyone's listening to this and you're going to tell me this isn't how it's played, then I'll bow to your greater judgment. But my experience of the PvP was people running around with the shield skill. As soon as a firefight starts, they quickly put up the shield, sprint towards you, and blow you away with the pistol before you can even move.
Yeah,
it was a very harsh experience for me, and I went in with different skills and different loadouts and thought this should work, this should be fun.
Well,
no, it wasn't. I got absolutely torn apart in my first couple of games.
Well, that's fair
as
enough,
everything though. The learning curve is steep with a tactical shooter anyway. And the more I sort of saw what other people doing and could adapt based on that, it gets easier, but it's pretty rough to begin with.
Well, that's fair enough, but I think the point is, Perts, that it's just more content, isn't it, for the game? Where you comparing it, we have to kind of compare it to Anthem because that's what's come out just before it. That didn't have any sort of PvP mode at all, or no sort of dark zone or anything. And a lot of people, they just want more content in these type of games, really, and it's just more added. It's like an added bonus almost, isn't it, to have the dark zone and PvP really.
I said to you before that this game has more content at launch than some of its competitors have after DLC packs have released. So in terms of a launch, in terms of a release, you couldn't actually ask for any more than this in terms of the initial content and the initial replayability that it has.
Yeah.
Look, let's not kid ourselves. After a certain period of time, and I'm not sure what that is because I'm not there myself yet, even after all those hours, this game will become a grind because at the end of games like this, hence the end game factor, you will have to grind. But the great thing is that if you want to just experience this up until that point, it doesn't take 4 or 5 hours and then you're like, hey, I've seen everything, I can get rid of the game now. It's a long experience, and if you reach the end, you can be satisfied with it and say, I don't really want to take part in the usual sort of end game with stuff like this. I'm going to bounce now. I'm going to leave this here. And you won't feel like you've just been sold down the river for a few hours.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely sounds like a game that's packed with content, which is nice to hear after experience Anthem and Destiny as well. But we'll move on to our last news topic of the day, which is a little bit of movie news, and it was that the Toy Story 4 trailer dropped yesterday. What are our thoughts on it? I believe me, Perks, and Matty have seen it, and it looks like it's going to follow the story of a spork who is now a toy.
That's a good introduction.
Well, that's pretty much it, and he runs away. And
the response says it all.
He's suicidal a little bit, it seems.
Wow.
I hope I'm not suicidal after watching this film.
It didn't look great. I mean, I love Toy Story. I think, well, we all do.
I think it's just
don't we?
dragging it out. I mean, as soon as I saw Toy Story 4, I was like, why? No, just not another one. I mean, I do agree with you, Sud. I know we've been off air, and obviously you said the toys should have burned in the furnace.
That would have been a good ending. Would have been a great ending to Toy Story 3.
I do think that it should have ended at Toy Story 3. It had that nice nostalgia factor with Toy Story 3. It had been years since Toy Story 2. And now I just feel like they're dragging it out for the sake of it again, and it's just like, stop, just putting things in the ground, just let it finish, let it be Toy Story 3, and let that be the end. I don't want Toy Story 4, 5, and 6, and whatever. How long can you drag this out for?
Well, also as well, so everyone out there knows that Toy Story 3 is clearly the best one, so why not just end it on Toy Story 3?
Toy Story 1, the original's the best one. You knew I was going to respond to that.
Everyone's
was
favorite, Toy Story 3, the best villain in Pixar history. Lotso the bear. So
Pixar history.
sorry, not Pixar. What are we on now? It's not Pixar, is it?
I think it is, isn't it?
No, it is Pixar. Yeah,
It is
Yeah.
Pixar.
Oh, yeah, right,
But
yeah.
I'm just
No, it is
saying that's
Pixar.
quite a
Oh yeah, to
bold
me,
statement.
Lotso the bear was the greatest villain in Pixar history.
Well, you wanted him to win. You
and
wanted
anyone,
him to
anyone can
burn
fight me over it.
the other toys
Anyone
to,
can fight
to
me
death.
over it. Exactly. Lotso should have been the winner in Toy Story
Yeah.
3. He should have
But,
been there.
I'm sure that
standing
would have
over
gone down
all the
well from
toys' corpses.
5-year-olds. Yeah.
Woody and
They'd have
Buzz
to get
burned
trauma
to death.
counselling after the film because they've seen their favourite heroes melt.
And the last
In the
scene
furnace.
should have been it just zooming in on lots of the bear's demented eyes. And then it ends. And then that's the end of the Toy Story franchise.
Well, thank God you weren't running the Toy Story
no.
franchise.
I just want to say, in all honesty, though, I am a big fan of Toy Story. And I don't know. It's a weird
Sounds
one,
like
Toy
it.
Story. Yeah, I know, yeah. But we'll all go and watch it, won't we? That's the thing. We can say, like,
Yeah, I'm gonna
Toy
watch it.
Story. I'll watch it. 'Cause I'm a
You
fan
know
of the
what? I'm
franchise.
gonna distance myself from that. I'm not watching it. It looks crap.
So you didn't like the trailer then,
there's always
Perks?
one.
I didn't like the trailer. I lost interest after about 25 seconds, and the trailer's what, 2.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just not appealing anymore. I kind of agree with what Matt was saying. It's like, stop dragging things like this out. I'm sure it's still gonna have a relative mass appeal, but I'm done with things like this now.
You
And
don't
I know
want to
that
know
probably...
the Spork story? You don't want to see where he goes?
I mean, the fact that he was appearing slightly suicidal obviously does appeal to my tendencies, but still, it was a rough 2.5 minutes watching that, and it felt bad, honestly.
Yeah, the thing is, though, with Toy Story, I don't think you're never going to get great trailers for Toy Story. I think you have to watch the film to make your true judgment on it. You know, for me anyway, with a film like Toy Story, I don't think you can get what it's about really in just 2 minutes.
It's about toys.
Well, yeah, we know that, but
Well, it's actually about Spork, but that becomes a toy.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's
So,
technically not a
an
toy.
interesting twist.
So,
So
yeah. I mean, it was pretty disappointing. I'm a big fan of the series and the franchise, and I
mean, it sets a
Didn't do
bad
it for me.
precedent, really, doesn't it? The whole film, because at the start of this trailer, there's a spork that the kid starts playing with the spork, and in turn, that brings it to life and makes it a toy. But I'm pretty sure toddlers also play with shit, So where's the line? If the toddler throws a shit around the bathroom, does that mean that now becomes a toy as well?
if she
And
draws a
wants to
face
just
on it.
flush itself down the toilet.
Well, I think a
It's
question
ridiculous.
we haven't come on to yet. The most important question is which character's going to die. There has to be a character that dies, surely.
Does that?
I mean,
It's a kids film.
I mean,
Andy.
yeah, come on. In all good films, a character dies. Well, maybe that's going to be the last scene. Andy is a 90-year-old man or something.
No,
Like his
it'll be
toys
Andy. Just like in his mid-20s, essentially going through the same sort of feelings as Perks is going through
Yeah,
right now.
maybe.
He just kills himself, and then
Mate,
Woody sees him.
Woody and Buzz trying to do their best to cheer him up, but it's just not enough.
Perks has got a Spork in his room right now. Like, you made it into a toy, didn't you?
Well, I wish I did have that to gouge my eyes out after watching that trailer. It's 2.5 minutes I don't get back, which is, I don't know. Maybe the wider audience will feel differently, but
They did.
honestly,
They loved it.
I really just don't care.
Did you not see Xander, friend of the show? He put, why are you trying to make me cry or something? He loved it.
Xander, friend of the show, likes every film.
He
I found that out
does.
about him recently. It's a meme. He likes every film, even if it's crap. He still likes it.
He really does. He's an optimistic guy, whereas we're more pessimistic, I
Yeah,
guess.
definitely.
Yeah,
That's
I
definitely
think
true.
one of us just needs to see the light and become an optimist, because it's really affecting the show. To be honest, everyone's a pessimist in this group.
Well, I try and be an optimist at the start of the podcast, but it just slowly, throughout the podcast...
But it always
I
sounds
just get worse and worse.
disingenuous, like
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
pretending.
It makes it worse almost. I'm more pessimistic as the show goes on as well.
Like, can you imagine it? Can you actually imagine if you were like, "Oh, Matty, what do you think of this game?" And I was like, "You know what? It is bloody brilliant. Best game I've played all year."
I think on this podcast there will be one game at some point, maybe in the future, that makes you say that. I'm going to predict it now.
You're reaching.
It might have to be the best game of all time, but you never know.
It'll be a
happen.
Google Stadia exclusive.
Yeah, could be.
Well, that is definitely reaching.
Do you know what? It could be the news that Google Stadia's disbanded. That might make Marty very happy if that ever happened.
That could. And we'll wait and see if Marty does come with a positive attitude one day to the podcast and praises a game in the near future. We will see. However, that covers the show. Remember to subscribe for more gaming content each week and give our video a like. Comment below with your opinions, especially on Google Stadia. Did you like it? Do you like where gaming's going? Let us know in the comments below. You can also follow Checkpoint Reach Podcast on social media on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at CheckReachPod. And you can also follow us on social media. Where can people find you online, Sud?
With me, it's Twitter, so at David Tenspud.
Lovely stuff. How about you, Matty?
Matty Cheatham on Twitter and Instagram.
Lovely stuff again. And how about you, Perks?
I'm at JG Perks, and yeah, followed by the usual. I don't really exist, so
Yeah. He will reply to you though in the comments below.
Yeah, he's just stroking his spork at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Staring at it longingly, waiting for some comment.
Well, good luck with that. Anyway, we're leaving that there. Thanks for joining me as ever, guys, and have a good week.
Thank you.
We'll chat again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Farewell.
Bye.